Hello. Hi, everybody. Welcome to P A Minar, our monthly online gathering for live theater prop professionals and anyone interested in stage props. I'm Cass Westover. I received my master's in prop design and technology under the tutelage of our speaker this evening. And during my time at Ohio University, I worked at some of the strongest Shakespeare and opera programs in the country. And eventually I became a lead artisan and manager at one of the top regional theaters in Chicago. Now, during the pandemic, I branched off, creating my own business, but I am never too far from the SPAM team. Now, SPAM is an association of professional prop educators and prop managers from nonprofit producing organizations. We have an international communication and support network that shares resources, information, solutions, and techniques, as well as safety information, continuing education, and stock sharing. We promote the highest professional standards among prop artisans and craftspeople, and we promote the field of props to potential prop professionals while working to establish educational standards for the training of prop artisans. Now, SPAM was formed way back in 1994 to create a fellowship among properties professionals to address issues of common importance and to create parity with other production areas. If you can believe it, the prop profession was still a thing before the internet, but I think we can all agree that it is a much better time when you have a group of people in your field that you can lean on and ask for advice. We now have 150 active members, reaching from Hawaii to Ireland, from Canada to Florida. So as with previous Spaminars, we're requesting pay-what-you-can donations to help support this programming and our annual grants for early career prop professionals. Now, if you can afford to donate, the link will be in the chat during the session, and we truly appreciate any help you can give. Tonight, Tom Fiocchi of Ohio University and Fiocchi Sword and Prop will give us an introduction on how to build stage combat weapons in our own prop shops. Tom has been the Props Technologist at Ohio University since 1997, where he trains and mentors future prop artisans in the art of making props, welding, woodworking, furniture construction, high kicks, and more. Tom graduated from Rutgers University with a degree in design before working in props at McCarter Theater in Princeton, New Jersey, and the Shakespeare Theater in Washington, D.C. And in addition to his teaching, Tom operates Fiocchi Sword and Prop, where he creates custom stage combat weaponry and freelance props. His work is often commissioned for specific events such as Renaissance fairs, weddings, plays, and films, including some pieces that can be seen at tourist attractions such as Colonial Williamsburg and Busch Gardens. Now, Tom is an active and valuable member of both SPAM and USITT. In fact, if you have ever attended an in-person USITT conference, you may have run into him on the expo floor, where he can usually be found spreading the gospel of props at the Ohio University booth. Now, I'll be your moderator and host for the evening. If you have a question, please post them in the chat, and I will pose as many as I can to Tom during the Q&A following his presentation. Now, be sure to stay to the end to hear about our upcoming Spaminars and other ways you can interact with and learn from our membership. And with that, let's get started. Tom, I can't wait to hear what you've got going for us this evening.
A deep breath. My long Shakespearean hair is in the way of my ruff. Is this a dagger that I see before me? No, it won't cut anything. Welcome to my Spaminar. It's about 800 degrees in the Kantner prop shop today, so you're going to see a lot of drenched sweat while I talk to you about this stuff. I just wanted to say thanks, Cass. Thanks, everybody at SPAM for inviting me to be part of this. What I'm going to be doing today, well, first off, No, where's my flash? It's behind me. Anyway, uh, uh, as Cass said, I'm Tom Fiocchi. I've been teaching props artists for a long, long time. But I've always had a very specific interest in swords and armor. Back to my days when I wore cardboard armor to my ninth grade girlfriend's birthday party. And stuff like that. So I've always been into making different types of things. When I got into college and learned a bunch of different techniques like welding and other very theatrical types of techniques and stuff, I was able to get connected and start to actually build these things out of steel. My first swords were out of aluminum and stuff, and for washerman. And then the time that I spent at the Shakespeare Theater in the '80s, there weren't a lot of people back there in the '80s when the phones were plugged into the wall. There weren't a lot of people building this stuff, but there was Denny Graves, Rod Castile. These guys, I was able to see because I was working there. I could actually take their swords apart, take a look, and see what they were. How they were basically made and figure it out myself. I also took stage combat classes when I was at the Shakespeare Theater, and that's how my business on the side started, because we had to armor. Basically, Lewis Shaw, who runs Vulcan Forge, who's doing like most of the swords and things like that for Broadway and things. He actually was in that same class with me, and we kind of like would one up each other. Like, oh look, I brought a small sword. Oh look, I brought a rapier. Week after week, so it was a lot of fun. And our business started by selling our swords to other people there. So anyway, as I said, I'm at Ohio University where I teach this to students. What I'm going to try and do in this is I'm going to basically take about 6 weeks of steel class. The first in my advanced steelworking class, a dagger is the first thing that my students do. And what I'm going to try and do is jam 6 weeks of teaching into an hour. Okay. So I am not going to be welding. I'm going to do a little bit of grinding. I'm going to do some lecture demos, and I'm going to use some very, some good tricks here to try and give you a pretty good cross section of how this stuff is. I always like to tell my students and stuff that this isn't brain surgery. This stuff, all this stuff, if you've got the fire and you've got the desire and you got some, moderate skills here, all this stuff is reachable. So that's kind of where I'm going to come from. I'm going to show some specific techniques that you guys might not know about. Most of the stuff you can find on the internet, but this is also specifically for props people, because there's differences in real weapons to prop weapons. Okay, so intro to me. Yes, look at this. I've even got an outline here. No. Okay, so here I go. Now I'm going to walk out and around. Where's tag? Now I've got tag. Okay, I'm going to start off. There we are. My nice shirt. I might even have them made again. Anyway, what I want to do is I want to, so doing a dagger in your shop, there are a lot of levels to this, okay? What I'm going to do is I do believe that this would be a really good idea, is that I think I might make it a cooking show. Oh, just so happen to have my what do they call this thing? An apron. Here we go. So I think that perhaps today I will cook for you the pagnale bolognese, right? Which is literally the dagger from Bologna. Okay. First off, well, let's talk a little bit about what a stage combat weapon needs to do. Okay. I really love to talk about these mainly because I think they're the ultimate prop. And that is, it's something that looks like a real thing, but actually is specifically designed for usage on stage, okay? This thing in real life was about slitting people's throats and stabby and things like that. It was a really lethal weapon. What I'm actually making is, this is called a left-hand dagger. It was actually used in suite with a rapier. Rapier in one hand and a dagger in the other. There's all sorts of different styles and things like that. It had some nasty quillins on it, see those cross guards? Designed so that when you block the sword with them, you could actually lock up the sword and control the tip by just turning your wrist down. And so if you have control of the end of your opponent's weapons, you can be stabby while they're going, oh my goodness. So That's what they are. These left-handed daggers. They're used a lot in stage combat because it's a cool thing to have, the two weapons. It was very, very popular all during the Renaissance. So, but what's really kind of great about this thing in general, in terms of being a stage combat weapon, is it's not sharp at all. Okay, I can run my hands up and down this. It's got about 1/8 of an inch flat all the way down the side, and it's blunt on the end. Although if you ram this into somebody, you're gonna draw blood. It's also made so that you can disassemble it. That means that the pommel, which is this part here, actually unscrews, and you can take the whole thing apart. Okay, and this allows you to check for damage on the tang. This is where things break. Usually it's here in the tang and stuff like that. So you can actually take it apart, take a look at it. It's also usually made a lot of times we can choose different types of blades and things like that to make it easier on the actor. They have never cast at any time the role of Macbeth because the guy's a good fighter. They always cast him because he's a good actor, and through the magic of the choreographer and tons of rehearsal, by the time you see him on stage, you think he could kick the ass of anybody in Scotland. Okay, cool. There's a couple different ways you can do that. One thing is different styles of blade. You know, this one is actually this is actually an épée blade, but actual rapier blades were actually a lot thicker. They were actually a pretty terrible sword. They were also really long. They were thicker. They were a cut thrust weapon, but they were actually they came out of the rise of the middle class in the 1400s in Italy, in the city states and stuff, and they were kind of a personal weapon. You would not see them on a battlefield because they were too wimpy. Okay. Safe, reliable, durable, accurate. It is much more important for this to be durable. You know, every night Rochefort is getting it in the gut, and his sword, or his rapier, or his dagger are going to fly across the stage. As you know, as props people, when that show opens, you're on to the next show, and you don't want this thing coming back to you to be repaired at all. Aside from the fact that when they break, they go spinning off into the audience. You know, it's bad news for things. You can't even find the pieces, except for the lawsuits and stuff. But anyway, so no. Durable, it's reliable, it's safe, it's accurate. A lot of times, depending on this, we can actually design these babies so that they're easier for the actors to use. Especially things like, you'll see that this is actually student made. We just did the Scottish play in a kind of a film thing. This one was done by Gina Baccalucci, and this is actually the choreographer wanted a true two-handed swords for the climactic fight. So this is actually a really long blade, but you can see that with a really long handle and a counterweight on this, the balance on this thing is right almost at the crossguard, which means this is a very live, very easy sword, a very safe sword. So when you use it, if you're in the middle of a cut and they're not going to block it, it's really easy. You just kind of lock your hands and nobody gets hurt. But it's actually very challenging to use these. But by making and by getting like a blade with a very strong taper, and the fuller here is actually lightens the blade without weakening it, and a larger pommel and a long handle, it allows this blade to be very balanced and really nice. So anyway, so getting back to it, so this is basically a real thing. It's modified by stage usage. Now this is actually a good enough sword that if we sharpened it up, it's really a sword. Okay, it's just constructed slightly differently. Okay, than a real one. Now, doing a dagger in your there are also just last things. There's a lot of different other types of swords. Here's my latest. These are small swords. I'm just about to send out to a customer. I did a lot of engraving on them and things like that. They're really kind of fun. But there are lots of different types of swords, things like that. Most European swords have all the same parts. Okay, basically what we've got is a blade. We've got the foible, and we have the fuller. The fuller is the strong, the foible is the weak. These are quillins, or a crossguard. There's a handle, and there is a pommel. Pommel is a counterweight. A sword or a dagger are a combination of two simple tools. It's a lever and a chisel. It's a lever because it pivots on your finger like that, so it's a lever, and it's got a sharp edge, so it's a chisel. That's what it's like. Okay, so there's that. Okay, and all of these swords are basically built very much the same way. All of the European ones. So anyway, blah, blah, blah. There we go. Now, if you're doing a dagger in your shop, when I started out, I was just kind of messing around trying to find stuff. At the time, it was a lot harder to buy blades. There were a lot of wall hanger swords that you'll see, they're still being made today that are actually out there. You can buy them in Europe and things like that, and they're not stage combat worthy. So it's important that you get blades and things that are combat worthy. The deal is that you actually can do these in your shop. They're not all that rough, okay? But it's going to be different levels. I mean, for us, we've got a really well-equipped prop shop. I can do basically anything here, okay? Depending on where you're at, you may not have the capacity to weld. You may not have the capacity to bend stuff with fire. So what I'm going to do is I cook up my dagger, my pugnale bolognese, is I'm going to do both the advanced version. I'm also going to show you the what do you call it? The no fat version, or the simplified version of it, so that to give you an idea that you don't really have to have all of these tools. There are tools you're going to need, though. I mean, it's a very specific. There are specific. There's lots of different levels to this, but the actual physical swords actually are not that expensive. This thing, I think, in terms of materials, this has maybe $25 in it. And 15 of that is the blade. The rest of it's just like it's metal around. A lot of times I'm building the stuff out of metal that I just have in the shop. It's just like scraps and things like that. Okay, but it does take a lot of specialized tools and some experience. Okay, and a lot of the way that you're going to gain the experience is by either watching it online. I mean, I got a YouTube channel. If you wanted to see me build that, they show that picture of that. The cup hilt that I did, the Three Musketeers in the 70s version. And I basically have a 23-step thing if you want to see how I did all that. But a lot of this stuff, basically, you're going to find most of these tools in any regional theater shop or any good college shop are going to be there, okay? I would suggest to you, if you don't know how to weld, find somebody to teach you how to weld, okay? This type of welding, I'm using all MIG welding. It's really, really easy. I could teach you how to weld in about 10 minutes, but then you can't tell anybody that's that easy. You have to say it's really stinking hard. But it's not really that tough, especially if you got somebody to mentor you and show you. Most of the stuff you're going to be able to find in normal regional theater shops and stuff. So, and I'm going to go through it. I'm going to demo. What I'm going to do for you as I'm cooking is some of the stuff I am going to actually cook using my microwave and my heat and my bowls and things like that when I'm mixing things up. Other things I will actually demo for you. Okay, so, and hopefully you will be able to gain some expertise with this. First off, now let's start a little bit about safety first. One of the things about working with steel is everybody starts to freak out because it's fire, it's burning, it's sparks, it's things like that. You have to protect yourself, okay? For me, I do a lot of, welding in my shorts and things like that, and technically not great. There actually are different types of welding, leather welding coats and things like that we have over there. If I'm going to be doing a lot, I'll usually wear that. But for the most part, I'm using old sweatshirts and things like that. But there are things that I will not do without, okay? So what is this? I do everything wearing one of these, mainly because now I'm an old guy and I have to wear these too, and I can't see. It's important that if you're wearing goggles, that they come all the way around your face. I used to like to wear those Elvis Costello glasses, and I actually got a piece of steel bounce off my cheekbone, hit my glasses, and go in my eye. It was bad. They drill it out with a Dremel. It's gross. Anyway, so I haven't done that again. Okay, I'm using these things, and this is a full face shield. Okay, it's also loud. I love these little earplugs like this, but full head. This thing gets in the way of the full head things. Protect your hearing, protect your eyes, okay? It's good also, you should have ventilation. You'll see my welding shop's back there. You'll see I got fans and things like that. I've actually got a new blower I'm about to, it's like a vacuum blower thing that I'm putting together too, should be finished this summer. So, just try and keep those fumes out there so you're not breathing them. They're not very good. The other thing I like to do is I like to use these. These are actually TIG welding gloves. What they are is they're basically welding gloves, but they're a lot thinner. They're deer skin, kind of like nice. It allows you, if you guys have ever put on welding gloves, they are, time's really coming. They're like really thick and stuff like that. These babies allow you to hold on smaller things. And although you won't be able to grab onto something that's red hot with these without, you'll feel it pretty seriously. But if there's something pretty hot, you'll be able to get on with that. Okay, so anyway, so let's I am already falling behind here, so I'm going to stop talking about that. I'm going to start talking about setting your parameters. First off, combat worthy. This thing, okay, so what are our parameters for this thing? We have to set parameters. Every prop you have to set parameters on. This thing, you've got, it wants to, number one, it wants to be durable, wants to do that stuff. It has to be combat worthy. That's what we're talking about. It wants to look like the real thing, okay? In this case, it's a Bolognese dagger. Or from Bologna, yes, Bolognese, okay? Doesn't have to be modified. Usually talking to your fight choreographer will say, I like to show off these quillins. A lot of fight choreographers don't like these quillins. This is a very accurate piece, but it's also, sometimes these things actually work too well. Like you can actually lock up people's blades in the choreography when they're not supposed to. So you have to kind of talk to your choreographer and see if they think it's too much. Okay? And I'd be prepared to modify them. I have taken these things and cut them off here and here, very sadly, but it's a thing. Okay, research. Okay, so what we're going to do next is we're going to research primary sources. Okay, I love the primary sources. You guys have never had it so easy as this whole deal with the internet. Back when I was little, I had to go to when I was starting out, I was going to the card catalog in a library and stuff like that. But you guys can go on the internet. Now, the thing that's tough about the internet is, you can write in Bolognese dagger or left-hand dagger, and you're going to get 250 pictures. Some of them are built by idiots in their garage, and some of them came out of the net. Okay, so what I did is I actually went and I did so. I had this really great thing that inspired me to do this is I actually found there's actually a really great article that I'll probably try and share with you guys. It's about a Bolognese daggers that they have at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and it's all about the use of the left-handed dagger. So I really love this one. Kind of funky looking. You'll see that it's actually got curved quillins that actually curve in a weird way, and they've actually got a ring there that goes through. It's actually got a big pommel that I can end up doing. Anyway, so I want to try and get a hold of that. And I unfortunately I couldn't get a good side view, but I found another picture of another dagger of this that's very, very similar. I took this the cheater way, is I actually used my my cheater card, and I took this baby and I took it over to the Xerox machine, and I blew this little picture up. This picture here, see that one? But I found in a book, and I blew it up until my hand fit the dagger blade, or fit the handle. Okay, it's like that. So, or you can blow it up until you actually it's the same size as the blade you're buying, if you're dealing with. So anyway, so this is quick, easy to a props artisan. I don't have to do much of anything. And what makes a prop look good is that it's the correct scale and the correct proportions. Write it down. And remember, what I should have said was nothing. Anyway, so anyway, I had a combination of these two things. And what I ended up doing is that I actually I traced out another. So sometimes I'll actually find, look at that one. Look familiar? No. Hey. Oh, man. I really have to speed up. So I can actually take these, sometimes without modifying them, and just copy them. Okay. So this one, I basically went and I traced, I basically used a piece of tracing paper, and I drew out in different what I want. I wanted to have a stripy pole there, and this thing, and there's a top view of it there. So this is basically, it's my hand. This is going to be what I actually make this thing out of. Okay? So that's my research. Just to say out there really fast, research is great, but if it takes too long, or if it doesn't work for the story, you got to get rid of it. You just let it go. Be a props artist and go, let it go. Let it go into off into the wind, because it has to work with the story. That's what I mean with the quillins are too long. Goodbye, quillins. We're going to cut them off, and we're going to cut them off while smiling. Wow. So, here we go. What are we doing? Research, slow, modify for the action play. Great. Scaling up and down. We're already talking about that. It's scaled. Yay! Okay, tools and materials. Here we go. This is mine. Here is my mixing table of tools and things, okay? So what I've got here, what I'm usually working on This is my good friend. What I tend to use is I need a whole bunch of grinders and stuff. So I've got like a 4.5-inch grinder. What I'm using is a regular grinding wheel. I love these babies. These Nortons, they're fast grind. I don't know why you'd want a long life on your grinder wheel. This thing, you can get them at McMaster-Carr. They're great. Okay. The other thing, the next piece I'm going to have is actually have a flap wheel that also goes on a 4.5-inch grinder. Again, this is a 120 flap wheel. You can get these at Lowe's. I also get it at McMaster-Carr. Well, that's good. Okay. These two things, those two things. Also, this is a random orbital sander with a spongy pad. You know, it's not the kind with the. This is actually the adhesive pad. Okay, so I can take these things off. And they won't tear up when I'm using them on steel. Those things are usually used on wood. When you use them on steel, you have to have the adhesive pads because the Velcro pads tend to fall to pieces. Okay. They also usually have a drill with a flap wheel on it. Okay, these flap wheels I usually get from Klingspor, which is that North Carolina adhesive abrasive company. It's really, really great. I usually get 150s and 240s. Okay. They also make little mini ones, which are really cool. And I've got some other things you don't necessarily have them, but having a little die grinder is great. You can also get away with a bunch of Dremels with different types of heads. This has a little flap wheel head on this one. I also use the 1/2-inch drums like crazy. Okay. So anyway, those are the basic tools. I've also got a MIG welder, a little MIG welder, and I've got an oxyacetylene torch, which I'm running out of time already, so I don't even know if I'm going to be able to show that stuff to you, but we'll see where we go. So let me go. Anyway, so where we're going, let's start out with this. So we're going to start out with a blade, okay? What we're buying from Atlantic Cutlery is this. This is an Arkansas toothpick blade. This is a $15 blade. It's really great. It's made of a high carbon steel, so it actually takes an edge. It was actually made so that people could sharpen it, and the edges are back. You can actually see it's a really, how? Anyway, the tang's really long on this. Now, this is really much wider than we need for a piece. It's actually pretty skinny. It's pretty skinny. So what we're going to do with it, is we're going to take it and we're going to draw on it like the size that we want, okay? I can put this in a vise like this, and I can grind it down. Using the grinder, I'm going to grind all the way down. I also have to modify the tang a little bit. I'm actually going to make it shorter. So I either cut it off, and I'm making a little V groove in it like that. And this is a piece of 1/4-inch rod that's actually going to go right in there like that. And I'm going to MIG weld that together. Okay, it's pretty important when you're doing this stuff that you don't. You guys know about welding, you don't want to do a butt weld. That's a really weak weld. This, because it's got a groove going in there. This baby, when you weld in that sucker, the welds are going not just a butt weld, but they're also going up and down like that. Okay, and I usually hammer them, and then I'm going to basically grind them back in to make something that looks like this. Okay, it's much shorter. Of course, I haven't ground this one down, but. Okay, now what I've got on there now, this is a 1/4-inch rod. And what I have to do is I'm going to thread it. Basically, threading works like this. Virtually all of our where's my camera? There it is, integrated camera. The other one, there it is. All right, yay. Here we go. All of these things are actually threaded to a metric thread. It's actually a 6mm by 1. This is actually it's a tap and die set. This is a die. Basically, what it does, it's going to go on top of this section to thread this thing. So what I'm going to do is put it on top. Put my glasses on so I can see what I'm doing. So there's a little taper on it. And I'm going to start. I'm going to kind of push down until it's started. Come on, baby. You can do it. There we go. So the way that this thing works is actually it tapers. There's a whole series of cutters inside this thing that cut the little threads. This is something they did not have in the 1500s. All of the swords were actually put together basically like a giant rivet. I'm going to use a little bit of oil now. And what I'm going to do, I'm not going to do this too much just to show you what it does. What you end up doing is you give it about half a turn, then you go backwards to release the steel that's being cut. So basically what I'm doing is going like this, and I'm going to thread it. And I'm going to thread this down about 3/4 of an inch. Okay, so this cuts the thread in there. Okay, just to show you. It's ready. So, and then I put that into this. So I'm gonna put it in a bowl here. I'm gonna toss it in a salad bowl. I'm gonna toss it. I'm gonna toss this thing. Toss it in a salad bowl. When you get the ball and toss, you end up with this, which is one that's finished. You see, it's all threaded all the way to the end. So this is my blade modified. Now you can do all sorts of other things with the blade. You can put a fuller in it. You saw that groove that lightens the blade without weakening it. You can also do goofy stuff like here's a Peter Pan groove. And I actually took the same blade and I basically just grooved a kind of a crisp, kind of curvy thing like that. So that's fun. That's good. Okay. Let's see. Back to me again. There. So that's your blade. When I build these suckers, I just basically start from the blade up. Okay. Yeah. So I got my blade done. Thank goodness I tossed it in that salad bowl. The next thing I'm going to be working on is the quillins. The quillins are the cross guards. Okay. We can do really, really simple things with it. What I'm going to be doing, all of the stuff that for my quillins are actually just made out of bar stock. Okay, this is 3/8 inch by 1 inch bar stock. Yeah, and there's also 1/2 inch. I'll do 1/2 inch by 1 inch bar stock for this. Okay, if you take a look at this, looking at my this thing we're working on right now is going to be called the head block. That's the part that basically the blade goes up and into here. Okay, so what I've done is I've cut this piece so it looks like this. So it goes like that. Then go on my handy drill press and I drill a hole in it. Okay, this is a 1/4 inch hole. Okay, then what I'm going to do is actually take this over to my handy dandy vise there. I'm going to basically place it in like this and use files. It's going to take a long time to do, but I'm actually going to place it in like so. And I have to open that up so that it is the same width. So it basically works that wide. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my strike. I love these files. These are chainsaw files. You can get them at any fine C&E hardware store and stuff like that. They're super cheap and they're super sharp. Okay. Basically, what I do is I want to use gravity to help me out. So I'm basically going to cut down. Basically, this is like that. And I'm going to cut down. This takes a while. I like to use the Zen of filing. First off, 2 things. You see how I'm letting gravity use it? I've had students doing this. Makes me crazy. Okay? Let gravity help you out as you're going down. The other thing is use a sharp tool. Sharp tools are safer and they're faster, and so they don't make your head explode. Okay, so basically, and you can tell these things when they're actually sharp, you can feel them cut, and you'll see all this little debris of steel there. So anyway, when I do that, is I put that in the microwave, and when I bang it, it comes out on the other side, sort of like that. Like this. It comes out looking like this one, so it's going to snap like that. Okay. I square it off using little square files and things like that. So yay, out of that. I didn't even take it out of the microwave. Well, okay, so I'm also good. Now I have to also make the quillins. What did I do with them? Oh my goodness. I've got little pieces of steel that I've lost. Okay, take my word for it. They're little pieces of steel that are about yay long. And they've been ground basically to that shape, okay? And then they're welded. There they are. There's one. And then I'm going to weld them to that piece. So you see it like that? And I basically MIG welded in here and in here, okay? Now, what I want to show you really, really quick, because right now it's 8:35 already, bad. I'm going to show you basically how I turn this, using those tools, how I will turn this into this. See how that's nice and smooth on the one side? And right now, it's looking nasty here. Ew, I'm sweating. It's so gross. Okay, so let me do this real quick, just so you can sort of see. This is the device. I'm going to change this over. It's going to get a little loud. I think I don't want to turn it off though, so because I don't know what will happen. There we go. So let's see if I can shoot. Let's see if I can shoot this right at the camera. That's a really big one. Also, it would be helpful to plug stuff in. There's that. Here's this. So this is the only grinding I'm going to show you. You'll just have to imagine it. Imagine when I plug it into a, when I put it in the microwave, it's actually doing this. Okay. Now, my ears go on. My helm goes on. And away I go. The gloves go on. And here I am. So, look at this baby. Let's see what is it. There. So what I've actually done is I've basically scooped it out this way using this baby, okay? Now that leaves very, very rough edge on it. Next thing I'm going to use is the sander grinder. It's actually got the two 120 on it. They're going to be pretty good. Now what that does is that takes the really rough stuff and makes it a little smoother, a little shinier. Can you see that? Okay. Then I'm going to take my random orbital, this baby, we got some with the 120 paper, and it's not paper. Yes, we're our professionals. Hello, did you see that? You know that camera's hitting the ground sometime during this demo. You know it. There we go. So now the random orbital's next. Okay, and what it's doing is getting a little lighter, getting finer and finer and finer. What I'm finally going to be doing is using this baby, my flat wheel, to make it super shiny. Da-da-da. So professional. Okay. So basically, in almost no time, as you can see, it's basically taken that right there and it basically ground out. I took all the weld and stuff like that, and it basically made a little scoop there and cleaned up that side. I'll go to this side and clean that up, that side. Now, you'll also see something else that I've done here. A little trick of the trade. All of this stuff comes out like, this is 1/4-inch thick rod, okay? They didn't have extruded rod in the Renaissance. See how it's 1/4-inch thick? So what I will tend to do is I'll actually taper stuff. If I use round stock, I'll actually taper it in a way so it doesn't look like it came out of a factory. They didn't have any. The stuff that they were doing was actually hammered out. So by actually tapering and things like that, it actually has a little bit more authentic look. Okay, but you can see that doesn't take too long to do in terms of now. So basically, what we've got is we have this baby roughed in like this. After I have the slot cut into it, the last thing we have to do is there's a thumb ring on this. Okay, the thumb ring was a ring that protected the outside of your hand. I don't know why it's called a thumb ring, but it's actually a ring. What I tend to do with this stuff is just to be sleazy and a props artisan. Where we are. Where am I at? Not the microphone. I want the camera. Back to my face. Here we go. I'm talking real loud because I have these things in my ear. But anyway, it's a lot easier to make an oval ring just by slicing a piece of pipe that's about the right size. Then I'm going to stick it in the vise like this. And because it's an oval, I can just go, look at that. That easy. Now it's an oval. Yeah, you know. Yeah. I'm going to take that, and I'm actually going to weld it to this by putting it in the, Oh, I think I'm going to put it in a mixing bowl, and I'm going to stir it up. So I'll put these together in the mixing bowl, and I'll stir it. So other than doing that, I just want to tell you about, you don't necessarily have to weld and stuff. Oh, gosh, it's noisy, but it's worth it. Anyway, you don't have to actually do any welding. This is actually made out of bar stock. This is a crossguard. This is equivalent for a basic dagger that basically is made out of a piece of 1 inch by ½ inch that I just ground out and did the same thing where I filed out so it'll slide over a blade. Let's go over this blade. Let's see. No, it won't. Look, here's that short blade. It will go over this one. No, it won't. It needs to be widened out a little bit. Forget it. There, I'm embarrassed. But you can also do something that's a little bit more interesting and fun. This is actually filed out using the files, square files, triangular files, the round files, basically rough ground. You can actually see where I kind of drawn it. And then I basically have ground it. And this takes a little bit of time, but it's actually cool. And you can actually you get it roughed in, and then you can actually use the files to finish it up. And it'll look swell. I'll be able to polish this baby up so it looks really good. And I didn't have to weld, okay? So let's see, after I've mixed this all up. Oh, it's looking so good. Oh, Quillen, look at that. I don't think I have enough time to light up the, actually, I'm going to do it real fast anyway. I also use the acetylene torch to bend these. They basically would bend down towards the blade, and they also have welded on, and they've actually bent this way also. Let's see. I got a dagger here. Is this another dagger that's being put in? But just to see real fast how it goes. When you use the acetylene torch, it's fire. People freak out because it's fire. But you can use this pretty safely.
Tom, I'm just going to give you a little notice that it's about 7:43.
I'm not going to do that.
Okay.
I'm going to press on. So the next part of this is a handle. Okay. Oh man, 7:43. I was dumb to think I could do this in
We've only got a couple of questions, so why don't you do your handle thing and
all right. Handle comes from wood. Okay. A lot of the guys doing stage combat right now are actually using high impact ABS plastic, but you don't really need that. Okay. I actually use hardwood. In my case, I'm actually using I use poplar, or not poplar. I'm using hard maple. Okay? Where am I? Look, here I am. Okay, it's basically this stuff. The thing about hard maple is it's really hard. Okay, it's really laid well. It also doesn't compress. When you actually crank these things down, when you're doing a big sword, having something that's not going to compress is really nice. So it doesn't loosen up. The sword doesn't loosen up. Anyway, what I'm ending up doing is I'm basically taking and I cut it down on the saw until I make this little block like this. Then I drill a hole in it like so. Okay, the way that I drill that hole is actually taking a bit like this. I basically made a mark on this baby and then lashing this baby in. And now I'm going to move you closer to me. Right. Closer. Camera. Yeah. Okay. So there's this one. And where'd my little clamp go? Where are you at, little clamp? Great. Well, there it is. So what I'm going to do, I made a jank here. Just keep this thing straight up and down upright. It's really important that we try to keep drill straight holes in this that are parallel to the sides. So I'm going to push this all in. Flick this baby on, line it up. I'm actually using a brad point bit, so it lines up really good. So I'm going to hit it right in that square. You see what I'm doing? There it is. And away I go. And basically, I'm going to cut about halfway in. I can actually go, take a look at this, that's about far. You can look over here on my little marker there and see how far it is to go halfway down. Okay? The reason why I do this, now I'm going to shoot from the other end.
The reason why I do that is because a lot of times the Mother Nature just hates us. He hates a straight line. He hates what we did to the forest. So basically, because of the different grains of the wood and stuff like that, it actually can make this tool bit kind of like travel off. So what I'm hoping to do is that these two will line up pretty much better graph. Okay? Also, my drill bit isn't long enough to go all the way through. It might wander off. So, all the way through. I don't know if you can see. Yeah, there it is. All the way through. Now, what I'm going to do with that is the next thing I'm going to do is lathe this thing. I actually take it to the bandsaw and I cut 2 little slots in it, like that in the bandsaw. And then I can use my lathe. Now, you don't have to use a lathe. You can actually just take the piece of wood. You actually take your piece of wood and you can carve it. After you have this, you can actually carve it to the shape of your handle. Okay? For me, I have a very specific shape that I want this to be. That's based on this. Remember this? There we go. So what I can do is really fast. Crank. This is in lieu of actually doing this. In we go. Lock it in place. Flick it on. I'm going to use a gouge here. Okay. Now what I'm also doing is I'm basically going to take this caliper and I'm basically going to see what's the widest point of this. These things, if you take a look at it, most of the time they've got a little, their widest about 1/3 of the way up. Okay? And then they pin in the handle is always smaller here than here. But a lot of times to be sexy, they have those swelling. So I'm going to start by making this thing a cylinder. An even cylinder. Close. Close enough for theater work. Now I'm going to take this baby, fold it over here, make a mark for how long it is. Just like that. Flick it on. There we go. I'm going to use the cutoff tool. It's this thing. Cut in. Don't want to cut all the way in. Then I'm going to reshape it. So this is the back side. I'm just doing it by eye because I'm good. But if I really wanted to, I could actually take the calipers again and kind of like measure in different places here, especially at one end or the other end. Okay? Like that. Now I'm going to use a finishing tool. Look at that. Like lighting. Look, it's a handle. I'm going to go and cut this part off in the one. Is that a dagger I see before me on the floor? How did that happen? Oh. Kind of big. On. Fingers backing out of the way. Ta-da! So that's what I end up with. Okay? So, now I have to move this all around.
So Tom,
yeah.
How much more are you hoping to get out here? We're at 7:50. We could ask some questions, or we can.
Or do we kind of get a little? Do we do that after, or do we do it now?
Do you want to give a couple of hot tips about the pommel process?
Okay.
And then we'll do the questions.
All right, here we go. So anyway, just to make a long story shorter, what you can do with these things is you can also carve them. Then you can carve the shape. Basically, you're going to cover them with a really thin piece of leather. I usually get my leather out of old jackets and stuff that I buy at Goodwill and stuff like that, because it's really, really thin leather. This allows the wire that you're going to put on it to bite into it. Okay, so you kind of cover it. You have to glue it on a barge. Okay. From there, what I'm actually doing is I'm actually taking
And I had the demo for it, but I think maybe I'm going to have to do the demo and do it online. What I've done is actually spun the wire, basically connected it up to a table over there, and took 2 pieces of wire, stuck them in a drill, and basically made it go like that. I had 2 sets of that wire. I basically drilled holes in the end, toothpicked it in, and then basically just wound this up. I'll do one for YouTube so you can really see it. Okay. So, yeah. But I'll put it in this pot here. It didn't work. And look at this, I didn't even get to fry anything or season it with my stuff. This is really a bummer. Anyway, so the last thing, the pommel is a counterweight. It works like this. Basically, it comes out of, we're basically getting, pieces of round stuff. Okay. You're not going to be able to find this at Lowe's. You actually have to go to a place that has real life steel. But you can get little drops and stuff like this long, costs about $20. So anyway, so I cut this. You have to cut it. It's got to be nice and square with that. What I ended up doing is using that drill press again, and you're going to use a tap. A tap into high set. This looks like you can buy one. Yay! From here, you can buy these ones at Lowe's. They're really pretty cool. And it actually comes with the drill bit and the tap set. So I'm not going to actually do it, but basically you drill the hole through, you tap it, you thread it. And I usually thread in both directions, okay? Then I'm just going to grind the same way I did before. Basically what I'm going to do is the shape. I'm basically going to, I cut in my little collar there on edge. And then you see it's a round shape. I'm going that direction. And I rotate it and I go that direction. I put it in my vise basically like this and I work over it like that. And then I rotate it again and then I just connect the dots and make it round. So what you end up with is this, using those same tools again. Basically, I'm going to start with the grinder, then the sander grinder, and the random orbital, and then the flap wheel, okay? And they're threaded. The little pin that I have on the bottom, this is actually in a normal thing, this is actually the tang of the blade coming out the end. It's basically hammered down, it's actually peened. For us, it's just decoration. And what I do is I take these little hex nuts like this. They're also 6 millimeter, and I fill them with weld, and then I shape them. And I just screw them in so they're slick. So that was really, really fast. But now, what you end up with is if you take this, and then you take, where's the other one? Here's this, and where's that quilling? I did something with the quilling. Here it is. So when they go together, basically they're working like this. This slides over like so. Okay. The handle goes over like this, just like so. Okay. Now, I've also done some Turk's head knots. See, these are actually made out of beading wire. You're going to rarely ever see a small sword or any kind of rapier that does not have those Turk's heads. But most people don't do them because they're really hard. And I found a really easy way to do it, and that is by using this stuff. Now, last thing I'm going to do is put this in the vise and crank it up to tighten it up. There's the vise. Where's that? No, it's up there. There we go. This baby even has an oval in another direction. There it is. There we go. Now, next thing I'm going to do, last thing I'm going to do with this is throw it on the ground. Wouldn't it be great if it broke? Wouldn't it be great if it broke? That would be so great if it broke, wouldn't it? That would be, yeah. I like to really embarrass myself. So anyway.
That's great. That's awesome.
I didn't get to show too much, but you kind of get the idea.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to start with the most recent question, actually. How long does it take to create a whole dagger? Like, you're doing all the stuff in time. How long does that typically take you?
Well, it really doesn't take that long. I can do one kind of depends. It depends on how crazy they are. That one, I think I did. I basically built that one over the last day. It's probably 8 hours, 8 to 12 hours for this one. I also cheated. I actually had this was actually already done. I did it for a demo for class. So it was like, oh, look at that. Serendipity. It's the right length, and it's even got the spiral on it. That was actually, in order to get that spiral, it basically was carved in while it was wood. And then cover it with leather, and then cover it with the wire.
That's great. Cool. So Kevin asks, what do you use for making fullers? An angle grinder, Dremel?
And you can do a lot of different ways.
You have to keep it cool also, he wants to know.
Yeah. We don't really have that kind of a problem with We're doing combat weapons like that. We're not going to mess the temper up with this. We're not doing any forged fire stuff. We don't get it so hot that it's going to be. And because we don't have any edge holding capabilities, it doesn't matter. All we want to have is a high carbon steel that's going to be durable. Okay? All of the steel on the handles and stuff is all mild. When I do the fullers, and I'm usually going to take a Dremel with a fiberglass wheel. I draw it out. I basically cut a line in it as a guide, and then I'll take my angle grinder on edge and go down. It's fraught with peril. It's fraught with peril, and I'll do that. I've also done it recently by using Dremel grinding wheels or my die grind. But it really has really close, because if you pop out of there, you mar up the high carbon steel, and it's a lot to buff it out. Okay? So I've been using mostly my Dremels, but like I said, and then I just found out recently that you never have fullers that end here. They always go all the way to the end. Like, no. Sorry. And a fuller is basically there to lighten the blade without weakening it, and make it look prettier.
Of course.
That answer the question?
Yeah, I think so. And now Nick already took a stab at this question, but Jessica would love to hear what resources you love to buy parts of your weapons. Nick says that the dagger blades that you purchase are the Arkansas toothpick blade from Atlanta Cutlery.
Yeah.
Do you have any other sources?
There's all sorts of different things. You know what I'm going to do? I actually was going to make a menu, or not a menu, my recipe that has all of this stuff up. There's lots of different places. Now there are enough places now. Broadsword blades. I'll go to Rogue Steel. I like those guys. They're doing their own. Those Hanweis, they're Hanweis. These guys are coming from China. The really big broadsword blade, because of the rise of the historical fencers now. And everybody's there's so many things to choose from. I love those wide broadsword blades with the really deep fullers. They've got edges. You can get them sharp, or you can get them, stage combat worthy. They're all threaded, 6 millimeter. There are a lot of different places. I think Darkwood Armory also does blades, but they can get expensive. I mean, like I think they're charging $150 now for the ones from Rogue Steel. So that really, when you're trying to make stuff for customers and all that, really jacks the price up. They used to be about 100, and like I said, these dagger blades are okay.
So. Jay wants to know if it's necessary to rub oil on your blades when they're in storage.
You should, yes. Yeah.
How often?
That makes me crazy, because our stage combat teacher here, they don't treat blades well. So I basically have to go up there during the summer. They all showed up today when I was going up there to look for a rapier for this thing, and they're covered with rust because they don't.
Okay, top 3 favorite tools or materials to take rust off of swords.
I like the flap wheels. I love the flap wheels. For me, I've actually got. I covered it up because I got the only real knife making tool I have here is a boulder polisher. See that thing? And this flap wheel's almost gone, but I love that flap wheel. It's basically the same one, but it's a big one. That thing takes it off like crazy. There's also, oh crap! Come on! You're great. Sand flex. Check out these. These are super. You can get these at Cling Square also. The Sand Flex bars. This is basically a steel eraser. It's basically a rubberized thing with steel grind, and then you just basically rub it on things. And it comes in a coarse, fine, and medium. This is a medium. Green, medium. But this stuff takes rust off like crazy without really marring it up very much.
Oh.
You can also use really fine sandpaper.
Okay.
Whatever you need to. It's better to do what Jay says and oil, because it's so much easier to prevent than it is to clean up. So sure. I have a rag in a bag with 3-in-1 oil in it. And basically after we use it, I know that some people are really, a lot of guys have actual, a lot of stage combatants have it's almost like a, can I pet your dog kind of thing? It's like, am I allowed to touch your weapon kind of thing?
Right.
But they have an elaborate ritual when you pay $500 for a sword, you might want to keep it unrusty. So oiling it up after every usage is a good thing. So
Cool. I got a couple more questions about steel stuff and then another broader question. But how do you feel about 7075 aluminum as an alternative to steel?
Aluminum is great. We just did She Kills Monsters, and our stage choreographer really wanted aluminum because wanted really big, crazy fantasy blades that were still light enough and easy enough to handle. I mean, we had a couple specifically made. They're tougher because you can't do the threading like what I was doing. You actually have to pin if you want them to be strong and not fall apart. Aluminum is not as like the threads and stuff like that could tear off under stress and things. So we've actually, the ones we did for the sort of the southern hemisphere, whatever it was, actually had a steel tang that slid over it with pins in it that we glued the hell out of it. And one of them we just almost glued the whole hilt on. With this special epoxy, a really hard epoxy. But that stuff is great. It's so light. The problem is you cannot fight aluminum versus steel. They will just destroy the aluminum. But aluminum sings. And one of the things about the high carbon steel, because bing, it's very, very dramatic. And the aluminum is insane.
Definitely.
And I think it's really the wave of the future. The problem is for me is it's so expensive to buy. But
sure. Yeah. What do you use to dull a sharp blade down to stage-worthy dullness?
Grinders. I love that sander grinder, the 4.5. 4.5 with the sand with the one. I 4.5 of this. Actually, if it's sharp, I'll actually hit it with the grinder first. Just go right down. I've also done stuff like I've actually taken. You'll see this. I actually have one of these old crappy sander things that you've seen on Forged in Fire. They have the really good ones. That's how they actually shape all their blades like that. Well, this is the poor man's version of it. But you can actually kind of rotate it. My folder polisher will do it too.
So
you just gotta use whatever you want.
And then like round it over.
Yeah, you can kind of do like that. You just kind of rolling it like the rotator is going like this, and you can do that with take a belt sander, turn it upside down, put it in a vise, flick it on, lock it in place, and you can play around with that. The big problem is don't throw sparks at places. Like right now, we actually build furniture here too, so you have to be real careful about throwing sparks into sawdust.
Yeah, I can't remember the number of times that I've said, "Watch your sparks."
And always know where 2 fire extinguishers are, because the first one doesn't work. The second one always does. Really.
Great. I got 2 more questions and then we'll move on. So this one's not specifically about building swords, but can you talk about how you work with fight choreographer in planning which weapons and how they'll be used in a show? And does that affect how you build them?
Oh, cool. Actually, I did 3 Musketeers at Cincinnati Playhouse in the Park maybe about 7 or 8 years ago. I worked with Drew Frazier. It was really, really fun. And actually, to tell you the Scottish play we just had, I had our Sarah Keller, who is one of our costume designers. Basically, the design of the swords technically should come from the costume designer, but really, it's very rare that you get to actually design and build swords for a show. But usually it's kind of a combination. And most of the time it has to come more from the choreographer, because the choreographer knows what they're doing. And, there's an edge of authenticity that the props artisan has to have, but it's got to work too. What I was able to do, what was really great about the one at Cincinnati, is that I talked to him about what kind of blades he wanted, what kind of styles he wanted. Just for instance, the Musketeers all had, we were looking at swords that were from the 1620s, which is when it's actually blazed, 1620 to 1625. D'Artagnan shows up with his dad's sword. So that sword should look like, a decade or a generation older. And so I did a lot of these elaborate cup hilts and Pappenheimer style with cups and things like that for the Musketeers. And then I had basically a really heavily filed, just swept hilt with a really long quillin and stuff like that looked very, very different.
Cool.
But I mean, it's just basically going through with them and they'll figure out what your what types of blades they want, the kind of weight they want, and things like that. Most of the time when you're dealing with choreographers and you're actually building for them, they geek out on you. I mean, I've never had a bad experience with that because they go freaking nuts. When I come in, I say, would you like this? How would you like me to change it? It's like, I've been building swords for people for years, and I'm always, I've always got that imposter thing going on where it's like, oh no, I don't really know what I'm doing. And then, and I'm really, well, are they going to like this? Are they going to like this? I've never had anybody do anything but go, because people nowadays, nobody makes things for you. And for them to have had, been able to help make choices or actually say, I want this. And for me to come up with it, never had any bad experiences that way.
Yeah, I can imagine that's really exciting for a fight choreographer. Do you or someone in your staff or students keep track of the amount of hours a blade is used?
No, we don't. There's not enough. We don't do enough. These blades and stuff that we've made, they're going into the stage combat classes. When I see that the blades are looking bad, they're too dinged up. Usually at least once a year we bring them all down, take a look at them. But they're also, they're usually using the heavy duty muscular F8, and they're doing rapier and dagger work. They don't have a lot of deeper stuff. We have some really old Denny Graves hand and a half, but they're like those things. They'll probably, I'm going to die and they'll still be here.
Can you talk about what signs to look for with fatigue?
I'm sorry,
with fatigue? Like, yeah.
I think it's like cracks at the, you can usually feel it. I don't know. To tell you the truth, I've never really been around ones that had to be taken out. Even at the Shakespeare Theater, everything was in really pretty good shape. I know that they've had failures where, they've gone off and whacked people, in the audience and had to deal with lawsuits and that. But, and at the Shakespeare Theater now, what they do, and they have a heavy fight show, they actually have this goo that they can rub on the thing, hold it under a black light, and it actually shows that they're cracks for. So wow. Yeah, it's like some space age thing. You have to talk to Chris Young, who's there, about how he did that. But yeah, we don't really have to. They're not getting that hard of thing here. I'll take a look at them and say, I think they're still going to be good.
Yeah, take the burrs off and
that's it. I mean, you should be doing that a lot, and they should actually, have files backstage. Usually, we just take them up because we can do them with our tools. The problem is with our power tools, it does end in the blade eventually.
Right. Well, thank you for staying with us, everyone, and thank you for a fun and informative evening, Tom.
Wine.
As you said, it is tough getting 6 weeks of school in less than an hour.
Yeah,
but,
really.
I also loved that if you've got the fire and the desire, you can do it. And that is just so fun. So
you guys, you got to remember that this is an alternative lifestyle, you guys. And when you're going to be props people, if you don't love it, then you should find something else to do. But you got to want to, as an artisan, you just got to want to build stuff, and have that kind of. But that being said, don't get abused. It's now time to not be abused anymore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's another whole Spaminar.
Yeah, sure it is. Well, speaking of that, great segue, Tom. All right, everyone, it's time to grab your Sharpies and mark your calendars for our upcoming events. On July 18, Natalie Kearns, prop master at the Grand Theatre in London, Ontario, Canada, will be talking with us about the art of authenticity and how you can make your paper props shine, which I'm excited for sure. And then on August 15, Jessica Rosenbleed, the prop master at the Cleveland Playhouse, will be presenting Tufting, Tacking, and Trim, tips and tricks for theatrical upholstery. Sounds like a rockin' good time as well. So there are more Spaminars currently in development, so stay tuned for updates. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Links are in the chat. And Spaminar is produced by the Society of Properties Artists and Managers with special thanks to the SPAM Education, Publicity, and Finance Committees. Thanks again for watching, and please keep those suggestions for future Spaminars coming. We want to know what you want to learn about. Prop on. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.